Exactly. I don't have my mic on. Oops. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to my Friday craft demo, or not craft, it's art journal demo. And nope, I can't. It's not working. Here we go. Keep forgetting to hit save, which makes the camera angle change. Got to remember to do that. Today I'm actually going to keep it pretty simple, and I'm going to work in, let's see, camera, choose the camera, hit save. Okay, I'm actually going to work in this, it's an old notebook from my son's school, and they work in, this is from when he went to Peru, and they have their main lesson books are actually made in these notebooks, and when he came back this one was empty, which I did not harass him about, but I thought instead, oh look, an empty notebook for me. So I have literally kept these spreads flat, which means that instead of adding texture, I played with color, adding color without all of those ridges, and so it's not as thick. So I have several pages done, but it stays very thin. And it's another way to experiment and maybe keep myself, or push myself a little bit to create color and the impression of texture without there being any texture. You can see this is flat. So, you know, here are some pages I've already done in here that are all just about color and contrast. And so it makes me, you know, think about what I'm going to use. This is a page that's in progress. And to create that color contrast versus the texture being the main, you know, interaction on the page. Okay, so what I'm going to do today is literally I'm just going to use my brayer. And this one's a little chunky. One of my favorite things to do is to pull the paint off of it when it gets to a certain point. Just make sure it rolls. And I'm just going to grab paint. Some of these paints I have in the store and some of them I don't. This is one that I picked up as a sample that I might bring in. It's a fine art paint called Holbein, and it's an acrylic matte color. All the brands are coming out with matte paints now. It's, you know, on trend. So I'll probably be ordering in something along these lines. It's a fine art version of the mattes, very much like the frescoes that I already carry that you all know that I love. And Golden has a line of matte acrylics as well that I might bring in. Go crazy on the mattes. At that point, here is my fresco. I do have this. This is the Bougainvillea color. I have just ordered all the other colors, all their new colors that they have coming out. They have a bunch of new stuff in general, new stamps, new stencils, new colors for their frescoes, and I've ordered some of it, not all of it, just because I could go crazy. I also ordered new All in Create stamps. And the thing about working flat is that it does create a surface that then it's easier to stamp on. So it will lend itself a little more easily to using stamps that have, you know, an image in them. One stamp set that I'm bringing in, or stamp sets that I'm bringing in, are Tracy Scott's from Paper Artsy, and she has this really wonderful style where she creates repetitive patterns over and over and over again, and I'm just very taken with them right now. I've signed up for one of her classes, and I've brought in some of her stamps. They're on that order. So I was trying to point something out about this. You know, I'm just putting it on the page and it's blobbing, so I'm getting these big blobs. If I wanted for it to come down a little more grungy, then the way to do that is to start by squeezing the paint out. Sorry. Get myself together. Squeezing your paint out onto a palette page in essence, and you get that blob somewhere else, and then you get a little more of a unevenly lay down. You can see that was a Grumbacher, which is a fine art paint that I just happen to have in my stash again to give it a try. Here is Liquitex. This is a version of this is an acrylic gouache. Is what they. It's like a gouache is a fluid paint, like a watercolor, but watercolors are transparent and gouaches are not. They're opaque, so they go down more like a traditional paint, but they're fluid, so that you can water them down and they move around a little more like a traditional watercolor. So putting that down, and you may have seen a lot of these colors are opaque. This orange that I put down was very transparent. This has a translucence to it. Let's see. All right. I'm going to go for a little contrast. Here's a color you guys might recognize. This is my Mermaid Lagoon Distress Paint. And I'm going to throw some of that down. Play around with it. So basically, I'm just going to keep brayering until I have, a nice quantity of color down. You can see these pages are very, very fine. Fine, lightweight. Lightweight maybe is a better way to say it. You can see, brayering can be a lot of fun just because, again, it's, it's very organic when you put it down. It's, brayers traditionally come from the printing side of things, where you would brayer down some, a color onto a plate and then, manipulate the plate and then pull a print. So this is, using it to paint with is very much a mixed media technique in terms of letting go and it being an organic addition to your page. And I don't know if you can see, hey Melinda, hey Lois. I hadn't looked up yet. Is this your names online? I'm going to throw down, so let's see, that was the Distress Paint, Twisted Citron. Now these are fluid acrylic paints. I'm going to switch here to Dina Wakely's acrylic paint. It's more of a heavy body. Well, just a regular body, I should say. Her heavy bodies come in tubes. She does have a heavy body line. And so you can see that every time I put down a new color and brayer it on, the colors behind it fall back and it changes the tone of the page. Sometimes dramatically. It's getting a little muddy, so I'm going to dry it so that these are all acrylics, so when I dry them, they'll then stay in place. If I work on them wet, they'll muddy and interact with each other, which I don't mind, but this is now losing the distinction of the colors that I had down there. So I'm going to go ahead and dry this a little bit. And almost all of these have a matte quality to them, so I'm getting a nice chalky finish. Go through it. Sorry, it was me leaning on my keyboard without realizing it. Okay, so what I really want are moments like this, which hopefully you can see how I've got multiple layers of color, but all of them are distinct. So this has muddied, but this has sort of done what I wanted, which is create layers that I can see through. So now I'm going to add another paper artsy color. And I'm going to brayer on my palette page first, so I get a lot of color on my brayer, but not a blob. Do you see the difference? Now this color ended up being translucent, so I'm losing some of it. Filling in some of those dark spots. And that's translucent. All the colors I grabbed are translucent today. Interesting. Okay, here are some opaque colors. Actually, these are some of the first colors I ever worked with the paper artsy stuff, and I love them. These are very opaque, and again, all of these, regardless of translucence or opaqueness, dry matte. You see that, how that's sitting on top now? I love it. So the Distress name brand in general, Melinda, is about it being water soluble. So the binder they have in it is just really responds well to being mixed with color. And so regardless of the product, as long as it, like most of his products are water soluble even once they're dry. His acrylic paints move really beautifully when you water them down while they're wet. Once they're dry and they're in place. But the distress element is really just that you can water it down and move it around. All right, I'm going to use this mustard pickle. Hi, Jill. Happy Friday to you. I'm going to be sending out a newsletter about this to all of you this weekend, or next week. But I am going to open up for in-store appointments again, starting next week. You can message me, give me a call, email me, and we can set up a time. And you can come in and browse the store. It will just be you. That is what I guarantee. And it'll just be me, and or it might be my friend Kendall. She's been helping me in the background. And yeah, so if you want to come in and browse, it is okay for you to do so now. Or I think it's okay for you to do so, I should say, since it's up to me. But I'm going to hit this again. I love what's going on here. This whole interaction is kind of what I want. So I'm going to do something a little more dramatic on this side to see if I can't get it there too. This is what's fun about brayering, is that it's this sort of scattered color effect that you can see through these layers that you put down, and they interact with each other, and it's fun. Actually, my palette's starting to look kind of fun too. I don't know if you can see that. Let's see. Let's go back to this Bougainvillea color and see what happens. And I'm going to put it down in a line. And then also, as the paper gets more infused with paint, it's going to be less thirsty and porous. So it's not going to absorb the paint. So those first few layers got absorbed into the paper. Throw more of this Cerulean? I'm not even sure how to say some of these. And this company, Paper Artsy, is British, so you have to imagine that it's in a British accent. Cerulean. Cerulean. Oh, that's going to bug me. I'm going to have to look it up and have Google say it for me. All right, where are we time-wise? Okay, I will be kicked off again half an hour in, so hopefully this time I'll anticipate it and say goodbye instead of just being unceremoniously dumped, but I don't know if you can see kind of what's going on here. Got so thin. All the layers that are popping up, coming through, making me happy. All right, this is the Liquitex Gold ink, right? So this is an acrylic ink, and I am gonna spray it down. This is very fluid, actually. On the last legs of this particular bottle because I use it all the time. But this is genuinely super fluid. So, and this is going to add, it's a little translucent, so it's going to add a sheen to the page in places. I don't know if you can see that. But it's pretty, you know, it's not going to really obscure much. Except maybe where I got it kind of heavy. So I'm not the only one that's, you know, branching out a little bit. Martina's doing more. She's hosting her makers markets, and she's doing a lot online in terms of sort of online shopping experiences. So if you want to see what she's got going on, I recommend checking her page. And then we have this new shop in between us. I'm not quite sure if she's actually open yet, but Laura has moved into the block and is opening a shop, vintage. It's called the Vintage Rose. Anyway, she's in Martina's old space, and she's got some really fun stuff happening there. So I hope you check it out. Is it called the Vintage Rose? Why am I not remembering that properly? Okay. My brain, I want to blame it on COVID, but the fact is I'm just getting old, I think. Can't keep a thought in my head very long anymore.
Spunky Rose.
Spunky Rose. I knew I wasn't saying it right. Actually, Spunky Rose makes total sense. If you meet Laura, it will make total sense why it's called Spunky Rose. Because she's pretty spunky. And she does a lot of the stuff that you see in her shop. She's hand done herself, which is a lot of work. I see her wearing her mask all the time, her dust mask. Anyway, you should check that out. And don't forget, you can always learn to sing next door. So if you have been here since the beginning, hopefully you have seen how the colors have built up and are interacting with each other. And you can still see some of my original color that I put down in some of these places. I'm going to do a nice, I feel like I really want to bring this turquoise in. There, okay. I'm going to blast this, and then, because I've got a nice level of contrast, and then I'm actually going to use my stamps on it, my sponge stamps. So I have a brand called Foamies, and they make these stamps that are literally foam. Let me see if I can find them. And let's see. And they just work really, really well with paint. That's what they're kind of made for. And so I could also use them with ink. So let me show you with ink. Here's a Distress Oxide, which is very opaque. It's a pigment ink. So I'm going to lay it down on my stamp. try and get some good coverage. And then let's see what happens. It didn't pop up so well. Let's see what happens if I squirt it with water. So this is the point with distress inks, is that you can hydrate them and get a little more coverage. That did not pull anything out. So I'm going to pivot and actually, this is my VersaFine Clair. It's a pigment ink from, actually I'm not sure how to say the name, but it's my favorite. I love this ink. I use it. This is a nice new pad, so it should have plenty of juice in it. Yeah, see? This is when I figure out that my image is broadcasting backwards. At least from my point of view. So hopefully you can see that because I have worked flat, I'm able to stamp and get a nice clean image, and I'm just now using up the ink that's on here. Anyway, that's kind of fun. And then when I let it dry, I can come in with a pen, and it's going to be much easier to work on than my usual chunky stuff. Like for me, when I do texture, the point is the texture and the way the color interacts with it. With this, the point is the color and the fact that it's flat and that I can work on it, after this, which can be really fun. Let's see. I've got some other. In a full face full of my process here today. I'm running around, grabbing things. So this is the Inkadinkadoo set I have in the store. Library Love. Actually, it's Inky Antics is what it's called. And the set is Library Love. And I'm going to use it. I've used this a bunch of times. And I just love the mixed media feel. Grungy. All right, I'm just going to throw a little bit more down, and then I will say goodbye because we're coming up on my 11:22. Yeah. Anyway, generally I consider these backgrounds when I do this sort of thing, that eventually I will do something that has a focal point to it. Let me pull this out and show you guys. So yeah, it's kind of fun, and I do like the fact that I can close my book as opposed to my big fat journal, which I'm barely a third into, and it's getting pretty chunky, which I love too for its own sake. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed that, and I encourage you to get painty. In a few minutes at 1, I'm going to have my product reveal for the store. Come back and watch that live. And then tonight I have we have virtual Valentine's. So if you feel like just hanging out online and chatting with crafty people while we make cards for our sweethearts or ourselves, then I encourage you to come and RSVP for that. That'll be a Zoom link, so you'll need to RSVP so I know to send you the link. But